Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Nina Curtis, and welcome to Plantish Live. My co-host Cecibek Randall and I go live Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're thrilled to be here with you. It is the last Tuesday in June. Can you believe it? Where has the time? I want to know. We are going to get into it. My co-host is joining me shortly, and we have a very, very exciting guest. What to do, Chef?
Hi, Chef. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. You know the drill. Taco Tuesday, take care of business Tuesday, Plantish Tuesday, most importantly.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Hello, everyone coming in. We're so thrilled to have you all. So, how you doing, Chef?
I'm good. I feel so grounded right now. You look vibrant and just it's summertime. It's officially summer, so you're coming in with that energy like woohoo!
I'm popping out, Chef. You know, the folks don't want to see us unless we're popping out. It's like, if you can't come bright and the goods, go back to bed, start again. We're not doing all that. We're not doing all that. So I'm thrilled to be here. We are going to be bringing in our guests just shortly. Paul Shapiro, he is the CEO and co-founder of the Better Meat Company, which we are going to get into. And Chef, he's right here in Sacramento with me. Where have I been? Pull my head out the ground.
Wow.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
oh.
He is, yes, he is also the author of Clean Meat, which has shaped how we are looking at the future of protein. We're going to get into that. He is a five-time TEDx speaker. Hello. We need to talk to him about this because that is exciting. And he is one of Sacramento's most admired CEOs. So let's definitely welcome Paul in. Let's see if the internet IG gods are going to be good to us. There is one God. Let me make that clear. Everybody else is trying to get there. Hello, Paul. Welcome.
Hi.
Nina, Chef, how are you both doing today? Nice to see you.
Good to see
You
you.
know, we're here. We got another day, so we're gonna make it work. How are you doing?
Things are going great. It's a beautiful day in Sacramento, as you, Nina, already know. But yes, we're going to work hard to get you to come visit our fermentation facility. We would love to show you how we grow whole food, really delicious proteins from
You
fermentation.
No, you won't have to work too hard. You don't have to twist my arm.
All
I
right.
might be there today later on. No, we'll work this out. We'll work this out. We're
Good.
thrilled to have you here. Our community is very engaging. So, fam, you know the drill. Drop where you're tuning in from, tapping in from, because we have an international community of people. Paul, they're very open. You know, we have chefs, we have people that have product, food, plant-based. We are a plant-based space, so people know not to pull up and ask me how to fix a roast. I could tell them how, but that's not what we're doing. So we have a very engaging community. So Chef and I will watch the chat so we can have, this live experience with you because we always focus on, or when Chef and I talked about, we had a 2.5 year program like this on another platform, and it was very engaging. And on that platform, we'd spend hours talking to plant-based innovators and leaders and thought-provoking leaders too. So we decided to bring it over here, and it's been great because we can see each other, but our engagement in the chat is what we really tune into. So, Paul, let's get this party started. Clean Meat. Fam, if you haven't checked out the book Clean Meat, please do, because Paul is the author. Obviously, I wouldn't be calling it out if he wasn't, but it's really shaped how we think about how we're thinking about the future of protein. We all know, we're going to have to come to a point where we understand and we get over the thought about growing meat, just like we grow our vegetables, like we grow most of the food that we eat, and we grow most of the food that we're feeding to animals that could be going to people. I'm going to calm down here in just a minute. But Paul, this book, how did you get inspired to write it? And then how has it, because you wrote this in 2000, or it launched in 2018, how has that changed your perspective perspective or evolved your perspective since you've launched the Better Meat Company?
Sure. So, Nina, I first want to say thank you for everything that you are doing to help advance plant-based eating. I'm really grateful to you.
Thank
The
you.
world, I usually am not that big on human cloning. In your case, I might make an exception, though. Get more of you out there because we need you. So first,
Thank
just let
you.
me say thank you.
Thank you.
Second, so, I have been a vegan for a long time. I became a vegan in 1993. And it was primarily because I wanted to help animals. I later learned that there were health benefits associated with it, but really for me, it was at first a desire to help protect animals from abuse. And I watched as I have been vegan now for more than 30 years, and meat demand only kept rising. Meat demand kept going up and up and up. And as a result, I thought, well, what can we do? And I saw that in the fossil fuel space, there are lots of ways that we can move away from fossil fuels. There's wind energy, solar energy, geothermal energy, and so on, right? And these are all alternatives to fossil fuels that still allow us to get energy. We can still have lights on, we can still have heat and air conditioning, but they don't rely on fossil fuels. And I wondered, is there something similar that we could do that would allow people to enjoy the experience that they seem to really like about eating meat, but without having to raise and torment all of these animals? And there are a variety of ways that you can do that. The first is through plant-based meat, right? Like what companies that for like Light Life and Tofurky and Field Roast have been doing for many decades, and more recently companies like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. And that involves turning plants like wheat or soybeans or peas into things that have a more meat-like texture. Then there is also growing mycelium or mycoprotein, which is like growing fungi proteins that are whole, all natural fungi that you can grow into something that is like meat, which is kind of like what the company Corn, Quorn, does, and what my own company, the Better Meat Co, does. But then there is this third way, which is not to grow plants or fungi, but to grow actual animal meat outside of the animal. And you don't have to do genetic modification to do this. This can be done just taking natural animal cells and putting them in cultivators where they think they're still in the body, and they do what the cells would do in the body, which is to grow meat. And it turns out this is not just science fiction, right? This is science fact. There are dozens of companies that are doing this now. Many of them have received regulatory approval, and they have even started in very modest ways, but they've started selling product in the United States and Singapore and Australia and in Hong Kong, and I hope more places soon. And that's what the book Clean Meat is about. And I had spent a career as a lobbyist for animals in the US Congress and in the state legislatures trying to get better conditions for animals. But I wondered, will food technology do something more that can complement these efforts to get better treatment for animals that could actually liberate animals altogether? And that's why I wrote the book Clean Meat. You're right, Nina, the book came out in 2018, but there is an updated 2024 edition that has been updated with a lot of new information. And the book is available anywhere books are sold. So if you want to go check it out, just the book is called Clean Meat, How Growing Meat Without Animals Will Revolutionize Dinner and the World. And I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you like it, if you don't like it, I'd love to hear what you think.
Oh, that's awesome. I got into it. I had to go out of town and I had the book on me and was trying to read it, and people were wanting to talk because they saw they were looking at this and they're like, well, what's that about? So I had to quickly start getting my clip notes down and
That's
talking to
cool.
people. But it was very engaging.
Good.
And Chef knows I always love to say this, Paul. Chef's been vegan since birth.
Wow. Oh, wow. Good for you, Chef. You look at you. I remember when I became vegan, I was 13, and they told me, there were people who said, oh, you can't do this. You're probably going to die. It's like holding your breath. If you do it too long, you'll die. And look at you. You haven't died yet. You look great. It's amazing. How old are you?
I'm in my late 20s.
Okay. Well, good for you. You got almost 3 decades under your belt here, and you
Yeah.
look very healthy. So
Thank you.
I hope you have a really long life, man. That's great.
Thank you.
Not only has he not died, his grandparents started this. So we're talking 3 generations.
Wow. What was their motivation, Chef? Why did your grandparents do this?
For ethics, spiritual reasons, and they were just really into like a conscious way of living.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, it
Cool.
was like a mix, an ultimate.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, nice. That's great. Good for them. I remember it was like I don't know if they were part of this or not, but there were these like the African Hebrews who had these restaurants called Soul Vegetarian, and that was like my lifeline. And I was living in Washington D.C. at the time in the early '90s, and I would go to Soul Vegetarian all the time. And you know, they didn't have French fries; they had Hebrew bakes. They didn't have regular burgers; they had Marcus Garvey burgers. Right? It was like everything was named in some cool way, and they were like a lifeline. So there were these old school. I don't know if your grandparents were part of them or not, but there were these old school vegans from, you know, like literally decades ago, who were really making it easier to make this transition back in the day. And so I'm grateful to them, as they were really pioneering this space.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have some really good food. We weren't a part of that community, but I am very aware of who you're speaking about, and yeah, really good food.
Yeah, yeah. I always thought they were always trying to convert me, and I was like, listen, you know, I'm here for the food. It's good prices. It's good food. That's good enough for me. It's kind, you know, it's kind of like Loving Hut. You ever go to Loving Hut, and like they have, you know, like it's like, you know, there's like some religious overtones that are behind it, but it's like, you know, this is just, you know, awesome food, and that's why I go there. So I'm grateful for anybody who's promoting an animal free meat or protein way of eating. It's great.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that. Chef, I see some comments in the chat. Do you see them? I don't want to miss them before we go on.
Yes, absolutely. We're getting some fire from Maya, Ian, and Pack. Hello. And from Nidwitch. Oh, is this going to be recorded? I just happened to click on, but I can't watch now. So glad I found you. Absolutely. This will be recorded and posted later for you to enjoy at your convenience.
Yes, yes. So be careful what we say. No, say exactly what you want. So Paul, let's get into this. Rhiza Mycoprotein. I want you to describe that for our audience, but I also want you to talk about what was the moment, because this is your patent, right? Am I correct? Yes.
Yeah, the
So,
Better Meat Co does a number of patents on the
okay,
production of this type of
exactly.
mycoprotein.
Exactly. So can you tell us the moment you knew that fermentation mycelium was going to be, you know, a keeper,
Yeah.
and that your company could be that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm so glad you asked, Nina. So if you think about the way that plant-based meat is made today, you think about, let's take a Beyond Burger as an example, right? And people will sometimes ask, why is a Beyond Burger more expensive than beef, right? It's made from peas, and peas are much cheaper than beef. So why is a Beyond Burger more expensive than beef? And the answer is because it's not really made of whole peas, right? You have to grow the field of peas, harvest the field of peas, mill it into a flour, but that flour is pretty low in protein. So they strip out the fiber, they strip out the fat, they concentrate it down into a pea protein powder that an athlete might take as a supplement. And then you have a high protein powder, but it's not textured like animal meat. So you have to extrude it, which is a fancy way of saying lots of heat, lots of pressure, and that changes the structure of the protein, so it becomes your hero ingredient, which is called textured pea protein. And then you have to add, you know, a couple, maybe like 15 to 20 other ingredients to it. That's how you get a Beyond Burger. And so I'm not against Beyond Burgers. I like them, but it's helpful to explain why they are much more expensive than beef, because it's using a tiny little fraction of the pea. So you need a lot more peas to make it. It's a tiny fraction of the pea that's had a number of processes subjected to it. So the question is, can you make that same experience? Can you get to the same outcome of something that has a more meat-like texture and flavor without doing all of that? And the short answer is yes, with mycelium, or what we call mycoprotein, myco meaning fungi. And so mycelium is the root-like structure of fungi. Every time you step on the earth, you're compressing mycelium underneath your feet. It's just all over the place. We're always interacting with it. But unlike mushrooms, mycelium oftentimes can not only have a very meat-like texture, but actually has very high protein. And so then the question is, can you grow mycelium in a commercial way? Not like growing it in the soil where it's very slow and it's not really economical to do, but actually take it into an indoor controlled agriculture environment where you can grow it in ways that actually make it cost effective for consumers. And we have discovered a way to do that where we can grow microscopic fungi. You can take a tiny, like a teaspoon of these spores, and drop them into a fermenter, a stainless steel fermenter, just like you would, you know, ferment beer in. It kind of looks like that. Except instead of brewing alcohol, we are brewing protein, mycoprotein to be exact. And so from the time that we inoculate our fermenter until the time that we harvest our fermenter is less than one single day. And so think about that. If you have to feed a cow for up to 2 years before you get a steak. You have to feed a pig for 6 months before you get pork chops. You have to feed chickens for 40 days before you get nuggets. In our case, from the time we inoculate to the time we harvest, again, is less than one single day. And what comes out is what we call Rhiza Mycoprotein, which is an all-natural, clean label, whole food, single ingredient that on its own, with no fractionation, no isolation, no extrusion, just on its own, naturally from the fermentation process, has more protein than eggs, and it's a complete protein, meaning it has all the essential amino acids. It's got more iron than beef, more zinc than beef, more potassium than bananas, and it's extremely high in beta-glucans, which is a particular type of fiber shown to be good for your gut microbiome. In other words, Rhiza Mycoprotein that we grow at the Better Meat Co. is a real superfood. It's packed with the protein that you want, but it's also packed with the fiber that you need. Most Americans, as you all know, are not protein deficient, but we are fiber deficient, right? 9 out of 10 people don't get enough fiber. And so this product has the texture of animal meat, while at the same time having the protein that you want and, again, the fiber that you need. And so we sell this ingredient to restaurants and to food companies for them to use in their products. So our goal is not to become a competitor to Beyond Meat. Frankly, we would like to sell to Beyond Meat. But our goal is to create alternative meats that are all natural, whole food, clean label, single ingredient, and absolutely delicious. And that's what we're doing.
I love that. You know, I really want to drive home the point because I know Chef has experienced, I know you have experienced it, Paul, and I've experienced people when they start hearing us talk about what sounds very foreign to them. It starts to sound like, oh, I don't want my food coming from a lab, but I don't think they really realize where our food, i.e., animal protein, flesh and secretions, eggs and chicken come from, and what is done to put them in a position to be able to even get in the skillet, none unless your plate.
Yeah.
So I've watched a few of your interviews. Could you just take a moment to talk about where we're at? And I'm talking about when you talk about the horse and buggy and when you talk about pins, because it's so relatable. And I think we as a society need to start kind of expanding our mind. I kept in our promotions, and when I was talking, I was getting DMs like, what is this about? What are you talking about? And I was like, we're going to stretch your mind so far that it won't go back to its original shape. And this is a good thing. So, you know, I like to be the one, and Chef and I and Plantish Live are all about bringing people food for thought, all pun intended, and then food that they can digest. Fam, we've pinned the Better Meat Co. Link. Please grab it. So often our fam that are joining us or afterwards will be looking at it while we're talking so they can really get an idea, because you're a B2B ingredient supplier to many of the companies, and you have a unique position in this alt protein space. But I don't know if people understand, you know, the difference of cellular meat, and then you talk about the Rhiza Mycoprotein. So if you'd give us just a little history of where we've evolved, and, you know, we are driving cars and such.
Yeah, you know, Nina, I do want to just address one of the things that you said, which is people, when they think about where food comes from, they often don't think about where meat comes from, right? Most people don't want to hear about it. And so I don't want to belabor this point, but, you know, if you think about, let's just take chicken as an example, nearly all of the chickens who are raised for food in the US have been genetically selected to grow so big, so fast, that they can barely walk underneath their unnatural bulk. They live by the tens of thousands inside of crowded warehouses, wing to wing, in their own manure. The first time they ever see light is on the back of a truck going to slaughter, and most people don't want to know about what happens next. And so when we think about how inhumane and unsustainable our current methods of protein production are, the idea of switching to non-animal sources of protein, you know, it seems like a naturally preferable thing to do. But there have been many times in the past, as you point out, Nina, that we've relied on animals for thousands of years for certain types of things that then technology's rendered obsolete. You raised the example of how we used to whip horses to force them to take us and our goods around for thousands of years. That was the fastest way to get around, was through horses. And all of a sudden, we didn't stop using horses necessarily because we cared about horses. We stopped because we invented the engine, which rendered the exploitation of horses obsolete. Similarly, we used to harpoon whales in order to light our homes. we would use whale oil as the primary lighting source in our society. We stopped doing that, not because people cared about whales. We stopped because kerosene was invented and it was a cheaper way to light our homes. We used to live pluck geese in order to write letters, right? That was for thousands of years. Quill pens is how we did it. Well, we didn't stop because we cared about geese. We stopped because metal fountain pens were invented, and now you had a much more convenient way to write, where you didn't have to stop and dip your quill into an inkwell. You didn't have to sharpen the quill tip. You just could write uninterrupted with a metal fountain pen. These are just three of many examples of millennia-long forms of animal exploitation that were ended not because of humane sentiment, but only because new technology rendered the old way of doing things obsolete. And so the question is, if we've been using animals for thousands of years as a protein source, might there be a better way? Might there be new technology that we can invent that'll and allow ourselves to feed ourselves with something that's healthier, more humane, more natural, and better for the planet? And that's what I think that these technologies are, whether it's plant-based meat or whether it's mycelium fermentation or, yes, even cultivated meat. These are all ways that seem preferable to the way that we have been doing it for a long time. And I'll finally just mention, for thousands of years, the only way that we had to get ice was out of nature, right? We had a big ice industry where they were harvesting big blocks of ice from frozen lakes and frozen rivers and shipping it in insulated boats around the globe throughout the 19th century. We'll enter the advent of refrigeration, and all of a sudden you had a way to get ice that was much more local. You could now produce ice from your local water even if it wasn't cold outside. And there was a big campaign against what they called artificial ice, saying this is unnatural, it went against God, it went against health principles, and you had people saying this was unhealthy to consume, and there even was a Natural Ice Manufacturers Association that crusaded against the perils of so-called artificial ice. And you fast forward to today, and we all have artificial ice makers in our house. We call them freezers. We probably wouldn't even dream of living without one. And we all know that it's just a new way to get the same experience. You want something to cool your beverages down with or to keep your food cold, you use artificial ice. And that's the same. We don't call it artificial ice now, and I think in the future we might not refer to it even as plant-based meat or cultivated meat. It might just be meat, right? That just might be what meat is in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I got into a slight debate on Thursday. I was at an event and we were talking about meat, and the chef, commented, well, plants aren't meat. And I just went down a list of things. And afterwards he was like, okay, I didn't think of it, like that. So I think,
Yeah.
again, if we can bring parallels or life experiences, or like you've shared, the history of things that we've evolved, even today with AI, with, Chat GPT, and it's not the only one, I understand, but I don't know that, when food gets on the plate, it's such a unique thing. So you are working like behind the scenes with so many companies to bring, this form of meat to our plates, and even companies that are blending to a degree animal flesh with your products, to lessen the impact. At least people are trying, they're seeing that we must do something. We're not going to be able to feed all the people that we have. What are the opportunities and maybe some of the challenges, with all of your experience and your team's experience too, staying behind the scene
Yeah.
when you're shaping the concept of so many products coming to market?
It's rare that a B2B or a business-to-business ingredients company is going to be seen, right? Like most of us know what the brands of products that we see in the supermarket are, but you rarely see behind that wall for all the companies that are supplying them with their ingredients, right? So you've heard of Beyond Meat, but you don't really know who is providing them with the pea protein, right? And that is because these companies don't care to have brand names. In our case at the Better Meat Co., because we are bringing a novel crop to humanity, it is important for us to be having some familiarity with people, because it's not merely like we are just offering another type of pea protein or another type of soy protein, right? Like what we are doing is creating a new crop, a whole food, all natural fungi that we can bring to humanity that most Westerners have never consumed. Now, the fungi that we grow actually has been consumed for centuries in some Asian cultures, especially in Indonesia and China. But most people in the West have never consumed it. And we're trying to bring this crop to humanity. And if you think about the crops that we have domesticated, it's very few, right? There's maybe a few dozen crops that we regularly consume, like rice and, whether it's cows, pigs, chickens in the forms of animals, or things, like rice and wheat and corn in the form of plants. But for fungi crops, there are very few of them that have ever been domesticated, and usually those are mushrooms. They're not mycelium. And so what we're doing is bringing a new crop of mycelium to the world, something that's extremely nutritious, all natural, clean label, that is absolutely phenomenal to eat. When you eat it, you just feel better. You're getting this burst of protein and fiber. It's got nearly no fat, no cholesterol, no saturated fat. Like, it is really a wonderful food. And so I do think it's important for people to have some familiarity with this, because it's not novel food in terms of never having been consumed, but to the West it's unfamiliar food, at least. And so I do think there is some benefit to us touting the important work that we're doing at the Better Meat Co. because of how interesting and useful it could be for the world.
You bring up such a great point. So I'm going to slide in another equation in there. How important is culinary storytelling to what you are doing, and then the work you're doing B2B, with regards to introducing the market to these novel or unheard of innovations, to really bring it around? Because as Chef Sesebek and I know, when we work with products or we're just serving people, we have, and I take it quite serious, and I know Chef Sesebek does too, because people are like, we're feeding them. We're like, front line.
Yeah.
And things we say, and for chefs at large, the things we put on our plates to serve others has a huge impact, almost like a co-signing, like, this is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And look, what we eat is so personal, right? This is not like the technology that we're creating. It's not like a phone where it's just going to be in your pocket. This is going to go into your body, and this is going to be transformed into your blood, into your flesh, into your bones, right? Like, the food we eat is what our bodies are made out of. And so it's something that is so deeply personal that we have to remember this is not just like another technology, like a new phone or a new AI. Like, this is literally going to become part of our bodies. And so this is why I am always so adamant that the foods that we create have to be something that not only are better for the planet and for animal welfare, that's like really my motivating mission for starting this company, the Better Meat Co., but also foods that are going to be nourishing to us. And we know that our microbiomes are often deficient because we don't get enough fiber. The microbiome wants fiber, it's craving fiber. But again, more than 9 out of 10 Americans do not meet the daily standard for how much fiber the government says that we ought to be getting. And if you look at other governments around the world, like in Australia, they have an even higher standard for fiber. So the US standard is lower than what it should be, and still we're not meeting that standard for how much fiber. And where do you get fiber? You don't get fiber from meat, right? Animals have skeletons. That's what holds us up. Plants and fungi don't have skeletons. They have fiber. That's what holds them up. And so there's no meat on the planet, not crab, not fish, not chicken or pork or beef or anything, that has a gram of fiber in it at all. Fiber only comes from plants and from fungi. And so if we want to do better for our microbiome, which we know is associated with all of our health outcomes, from our mental health to our physical health, if we want to do better for our microbiome, we need to feed it more fiber. The problem is, to get fiber, a lot of people have foods that they don't want to eat, like fruits and vegetables. Now, we know fruits and vegetables are great. I love eating fruits and vegetables. I know that you all do too. But sadly, the trends in America are not really toward massive fruit and vegetable consumption. And so if people really do want the meat experience, why not give them that experience, but packed with fiber, right? That's what mycelium can do. When you eat mycelium, you get like that meat-like chew, but it's just packed with fiber, especially beta-glucans. Again, this very important type of fiber, which is associated with a whole range of health benefits. And so when I think about the story of mycelium, I think about it's like giving people the taste that they crave, but the nutrition that they need. And that's one of the reasons why I love eating it so much. And I put it in everything. I put mycelium in my smoothies. I put mycelium in my marinara sauce. I put it, if I'm making a pizza crust, I put it in the dough. It's very versatile. So think about like wheat, right? Like, imagine that you were bringing the first person to cultivate wheat, and you had no idea that wheat could be used to make cookies, brownies, waffles, pancakes, bread, pasta, all these things that wheat can do, right? It's one crop, but it makes all these different things. And we are just scratching the surface about what mycelium can do. Like, people think of it as a meat substitute, which of course it is, But in reality, it can do so many things, and we barely even have an understanding of what it can do. That's why I'm so excited about this novel crop, because I feel like we're on the cusp of this revolution of creating new crops for humanity that are way more sustainable, can be grown way more efficiently, with way smaller footprint on the planet, without the use of animals, and yet can offer us really cool, novel culinary experiences, the likes of which we've never had.
Chef, I don't know about you, but I'm geeking over here.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
send me 12 pounds of it now.
All
Let me
right,
cook.
yeah.
Let
I'll,
me
I'll tell you.
cook.
I'll tell you a fun story. Here's a fantasy that I have. So right now, you might have, or your friends might have, like a ice cream maker or a bread maker on their kitchen counter. Well, what if you had a meat maker on your kitchen counter? What if you could order little fungi, like tea bags of fungi spores from a company like the Better Meat Co. Drop it in, and a day later you come back and you have freshly brewed protein right on your kitchen counter, right? The most local artisanal you could ever come up with right there on your kitchen counter. Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, I would love to. I mean, it sounds like it's in the Jetsons. For those of you young enough, Chef, I don't know if you remember the Jetsons, but they were a futuristic family from a TV show when
Yeah.
I was a kid. And that sounds like something what they would have. But it doesn't seem that crazy that you could do it. And I would love to live in that type of a world where overnight you drop it in and you come back in the morning, you have freshly brewed protein right on your kitchen counter. That's all natural, whole food, healthier than anything you can buy in the store. That would be awesome. I would be so thrilled to live in that world.
So would we. So would
Yeah.
we. I sprout, chef sprouts. I mean,
Oh,
you
cool.
soak, you put it in your sprouting jar. The next morning, you've got this increased density of nutrition and flavor and
Yeah.
texture. Chef, you looking at flights to get to Sacramento?
You're reading my mind, Chef. I'm looking at my calendar like, okay, how can we make this work? Because I'm not about to miss this party here.
Yeah, good.
No,
Well,
no,
you're welcome
definitely.
here. And as a fellow sprouter myself, I'll tell you, I love sprouting. I make broccoli sprouts all the time. It's a great food, and it's amazing how inexpensive it is per like ounce of nutrition that you're getting to sprout. So hopefully one day either we or somebody else will invent the tabletop meat maker. So far it does not exist, but it's existing right here, right now. So if there are any want-to-be entrepreneurs out there, I hope that you'll get in touch and we can talk about how to do this.
I love that. Chef, what's going on in the chat? Anything you
See.
see?
Okay. Nothing that stands out right now. We have some folded hands giving thanks, and then we have a smiley face from Heal with Era. So yeah,
Yeah.
I see some people
Yeah.
tuning
I'll,
in.
I'll tell you one more fantasy that I have, which is, I'm a sci-fi guy, and so I really think about like space travel and this other stuff that's exciting to me. And as you know, it's very hard to travel through space. You have very few resources. We're always sending up new goods to the International Space Station. But if we ever want to engage in cosmic tourism, like really long distance where they can't be supplied by Earth, they're not going to be bringing Noah's Ark in tow, right? They're not going to have cows and pigs and chickens on the spaceship. And if we ever build a colony on the moon or Mars, they're certainly not going to have cows up there either. And so if they want meat, they're going to have to grow it, right? And so while right now the idea behind growing all this mycelium at the Better Meat Co. is to solve problems here on Earth, mainly in terms of us destroying the planet in order to feed humanity with all these billions of animals, there is an application for space too. And I think it would be pretty cool to imagine a Martian colony or a moon colony that was fed by mycelium. This would be a great way to get protein where you can grow it without so much hardship of having all these animals around. So I am thinking about first and foremost how we can solve problems here on Earth and protect animals and the planet. But at the same time, maybe there's a pathway for us in space too.
Exactly. And I want to point out we are animals. So when Paul talks about protecting animals, that's protecting us also in that and helping us to recognize as the animal that thinks it's the smartest. I don't always agree with that, that we should be mindful. We
Yeah.
should be mindful, especially with the bees. And that's another story for another time. Chef, what questions might you have for Paul?
Absolutely. This conversation was really amazing, very nourishing, a lot to digest. I can't wait to look at the recording. But at the end of our sessions, we like to ask our guest some quick fire questions. You can answer these in a couple sentences, however you feel called. just so that we and our audience can get to know you a little bit better. So the first question I have for you is, what's one unexpected ingredient you love cooking with?
Oh, interesting. So, I actually am married to a vegan cookbook author. Her name is Toni Okamoto. She runs Plant Based on a Budget, so go check her out too. But so I have learned a lot about the culinary arts from my wife, Toni. And she has really shown me the benefits of sweet potatoes. Now, of course, we all know sweet potatoes are great, they're good for you, but she uses them in so many different ways. And one of the coolest ways is basically taking a sweet potato and baking it, and then you kind of like create like make it like a boat, and then you stuff it with other things in there, whether beans or lentils or whatever. And then what I do is I pack it in like with tin foil, and then I just eat it like an apple, like I'm eating like a banana, So I'm not using any silverware or anything. It's like a straight injection of a sweet potato boat into my mouth, and so that is one of my favorite things to consume that I have learned from my wife.
Oh, beautiful. I love sweet potatoes. I keep at least 10 of them in my cabinet at all times.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. I am known very much for my love of sweet potatoes, and one of my coworkers in a white elephant recently, not recently, for Christmas or a white elephant, she got me one uncooked raw sweet potato. That was the gift for me. And I thought, this is wonderful. This is a great gift. I was so elated. It was like one of the best gifts I've ever gotten in my life. I was so thrilled.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that so much. Okay, next question. Who is someone past or present you'd love to share a meal with?
Oh man, there are so many people, but I would really like to have a conversation with Harriet Tubman. It's very rare that people are willing to even do the right thing, let alone at great risk to themselves. Very few people, most people are afraid to speak out because they're afraid of being criticized. Imagine engaging in practices to help others that risk your very death, right? Like that is a type of bravery that I think few of us can ever really comprehend. And Harriet Tubman exemplifies that to me. Her life stands as an inspiration to me. I have a portrait of her on my wall, and I aspire to one day be even a fraction of the bravery, to possess a fraction of the bravery that she possessed to liberate so many people from bondage at the gravest of risk to herself. Like she would have been tortured and killed had she been caught. And so I would love to talk with her and find out how it is that she did what she did and how she mustered the strength to do that.
Mm, absolutely love that. That's a great choice.
Invite
And
us when you do.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I'll put in a plug. There's a great Harriet Tubman Museum in Maryland, which is where she was born. And so if you're ever finding yourself on the eastern shore of Maryland, I recommend going there. It's really a great one.
Nice.
thank you so much for that. Okay, next question. What's a favorite book besides your own that shaped how you think about food or innovation?
The book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari made me think about human history in a very different way. It was extremely enlightening to me, and I really enjoyed reading it. I got so much out of reading it, and I was really blown away by the breadth of its analysis. And I wrote to him. The book is now very popular. It's sold many millions of copies, but I read it right at the very beginning of its English debut, and I messaged the author, again, you all know Harari, and told him how meaningful the book was. And he was such a nice guy. He wrote back and he said, oh, actually, I'd love to get together. And he then came and did a talk in DC, and he invited me to it. And I got together with him afterwards, and I asked him, I said, hey, I'm writing this book about growing meat without animals. Would you consider endorsing it or doing something, like maybe even writing the forward? And I thought I was just like, shooting for the stars. And he said to me, I would be happy to write the forward, but I'm pretty busy for like the next 10 days. If you can wait that long, then I was like, I would wait the next 10 months for this guy. And he was so generous, so magnanimous. And he invited me to his home where I did go. And I really appreciate him and his book. And I've gotten a lot out of all of his books, but I definitely recommend reading Sapiens.
Wow, definitely gonna have to check that out. I love that. I love the risk taking. So many takeaways from this conversation that I'm gonna have to digest later.
Yeah.
Next question. What's your go-to way to reset or recharge when work gets intense?
Oh, I have one way one way only, and that is to spend time with my wife and dog. So I have, I don't have like tons of hobbies outside of my passion for animal welfare, including human welfare, as you pointed out, Nina, which we are animals, needless to say. And so getting to hang out, I don't have like really expensive tastes or hobbies, but getting to hang out with my wife and dog, even in our backyard or walking along the river that we live near, is definitely how I would spend my life if I had more free time. And so I really savor that.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. I love that so much. And the very last question I have for you is you went vegan in the early 90s. What was your family's response to that? How did they accept that?
Not well at first. They were quite displeased by it, but they wanted me to go see a nutritionist. So they got out the Yellow Pages. And for those of you young enough who don't remember the Yellow Pages, this was like Google, but in print form. And they looked up a nutritionist. This is in Rockville, Maryland. And we went to her. And my parents wanted to know, is this safe? Like their big concern was, the nutritional component. And almost like by the grace of God, this nutritionist coincidentally happened to herself be vegan.
Wow.
And keep in mind, this is in 1993. I was in shock and I was so happy. I felt so vindicated.
Yes.
And then I started reading, I don't know if you guys remember Carl Lewis, but he was like the greatest Olympian of that era. He was a long jumper and a 100-meter sprinter. He's really fantastic. He's kind of like maybe like the Usain Bolt or the Michael Phelps of our era, right? Just like the best Olympian. And I worshipped Carl Lewis. I had a poster of him. Like I really thought like this was like the best guy on the planet. And I read an interview with him where I couldn't believe it. He said that he himself was vegan. And I thought, okay, if the best athlete in the world is vegan, surely it's not bad for you. And so that was like really helpful in helping guide my family along. And amazingly, after I became vegan, my family slowly did the same. My brother became vegan. I see somebody saying Carl Lewis is the GOAT. I couldn't agree more. I love him. And, he's now, interestingly enough, Carl Lewis is a spokesperson for Silk Soy Milk. And I saw him on the cover of a Silk Soy Milk box the other day. And I thought, who are they marketing to? Like, how many of us even recognize this guy or know his name? They're marketing to middle-aged people like me who still remember him. But anyway, the point is that my brother did become vegan after that and still is vegan today. And my parents, I would call them like near vegans, probably like 85% vegan, which is fantastic. So my family has really come around and I'm grateful. I have a wonderful family and it doesn't help that I'm married to, it doesn't hurt that I'm married to somebody who makes great vegan food, which they all love, of course.
Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. I love the alignment. Oh, so much to unpack and digest there, but thank you so much for answering the quick fire questions and for meeting with us. You did amazing. You get an A plus.
Chef, Nina, thank you both so much. I'm really grateful to each of you for everything that you're doing. And for everybody listening, I'm grateful for all that you're doing to help give animals a voice, promote plant-based eating, and create a healthier world for all of us. So there's not enough of us out there doing it, and we need more of you. So please, not only don't stop, do more.
Thank you. Thank you. And before we end, we're not going to let you go that quick. We always ask our guests, will you come back? The answer has to be yes. Otherwise, we just keep going. We don't shut this down until we get you to, because we know you're going to have so many more things to come in the future. So we need the answer. So it's on live, recorded.
You've got my answer, Nina.
Awesome.
Emphatic yes. Happy to. It's my honor.
And what are you excited about next that you can speak to with us here on live recording that is evergreen about the Better Meat Company and some of the things since you've written the book, even 2024, update? What are some of the things that are really exciting you and maybe the breakthroughs you're seeing through consumer understanding? And I understand consumer understanding, but I really think it's important with what you're doing B2B and chefs in that, food service operators in that we really kind of nudge our way in there. I have a lot of friend chefs, one being my dad that's not vegan, but he's come and worked with me and I've paid him at vegan events. And, the feedback that he's seen me get, he's kind of like, oh, okay, I won't call you weird any longer. But what are some of the things just in our, we let people go off into their brilliance, but I want people to really take this conversation. We have stretched your minds. I know that because mine's been stretched, and this is what Chef and I do. What do you want to say to the listening audience and the audience that will listen to our replay, because we get a large audience there, that you would like them to keep at the forefront of their mind with what you're doing and what you see the future to be?
Yeah, sure. So first thing, if people are calling you weird in a world that has gone mad, maybe it's not so bad. So maybe it's not so bad to be weird.
So I'm fine with it.
I long ago accepted that maybe being normal isn't the best path. Now, all of that said, I got to keep it real. People like us are motivated in our food choices by things that most people are not motivated by, right? Like we care about the environment and public health and animal welfare and so on. In reality, though, the things that really drives most food choices are, does it taste good and is it cost effective, right? Most people are not going to buy something if they don't think it tastes great and it's cost effective for them. And so it is imperative for those of us who are manufacturing alternatives to meat to win on both of those. It cannot merely be that we are better for the planet. It cannot merely be that we are better for health or animal welfare. We must compete on taste and on price. And so to answer your question directly, Nina, what I am really excited about is that many of the companies, including the Better Meat Co., are bringing that price down right now. We are getting down to places where we can compete on price with meat. Not all of them, but many of them are. And it's like if you think about solar energy or wind energy, until it became cheaper than coal and oil, it didn't matter. It was going to be a niche product that only environmentalists used and were willing to pay more for. But once it became cheaper, that's when you started seeing skyrocketing adoption rates by people who, yes, they would like to do the right thing for the planet, but if it helps them save money, that's really what's going to be the benefit. And so I am enthusiastic about the fact that so many of the companies in the animal-free protein space are bringing that price down. They're bringing the taste experience up. And that, I think, is what is going to launch us out of the niche market and into the mainstream and actually start making a dent. If you look at plant-based milk, it now is over 10% of the fluid milk market. A decade ago, that wasn't the case. It was closer to 1%. Now it's about 10% of the fluid milk market. With plant-based meat, it still was around 1% of the total volume of meat that is sold, or excuse me, the total dollars of meat that is sold in the United States. It's barely even a rounding error. And to change that, to get to a place where even plant-based milk is, again, in the double-digit percentage, we need to bring the price down and the taste up. And so that's what I'm excited about. And I think we have a very tasty, delicious, and yes, humane and sustainable future for protein if we can accomplish those.
I love that. That is very high, uplifting, inspiring, and, somewhat thought-provoking to some, but we keep at it. We keep, as one of my favorite artists say, popping out. And, we're not afraid, like you said, to be called weird. When my professor for my MBA called me weird, I knew I was onto something because I was like, well, this is what you get. So, Paul, we want to thank you, fam. We want to thank you. We know you could be anywhere, and you've chosen to be with us. And those of you that are going to watch the replay, we thank you because we know you're here with us. And we have been speaking to Paul Shapiro. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Better Meat Company. He wrote the book, Clean Meat. There is an updated version, 2024. Please check it out. Please check it out. Put another book aside, give some time to this for our future. He's 5-time TEDx speaker, and he is one of Sacramento's. He's in West Sacramento. The Better Meat Company, which I will be going to visit soon, is located in my hometown. And he's bringing things, all that you've heard him speak about, or when you listen to his conversation, I think you will find the reason why he is admired as a CEO. Chef, you want to close us out and let us all go into our brilliance and take some of these nuggets and gems that Paul has dropped?
Absolutely. Yes. Again, thank you so much, Paul, for joining us, and to our audience. Thank you for being here. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here. That means a lot to us. We're here, same time, same place next week. And yes, have the best day.
Yes. Save the date, fam, because next week there's a connection to Paul. That's all I'm going to say. We'll let you think about it. But this train is not stopping. So if you want to get on, get on. I don't think you want to jump off. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.